Love brought out the best in me. When I lost my true love, the best version of me was also lost. This realization, alongside the unbearable pain of losing love, pushed me down a bottomless pit of hopelessness. I thought I was only grieving a person, but grief has a way of revealing itself layer by layer. The deeper I fell into it, the more I realized I wasn't just mourning who I had lost. I was mourning who I had been. The loss happened in a single moment, but the realization happened slowly, cruelly, one ordinary day at a time. The first few weeks felt unreal. I would wake up and for a few seconds everything was normal. Then memory would arrive, heavy, immediate, unavoidable. And before I had even left my bed, my heart would sink all over again. Every morning felt like receiving the same bad news for the first time. There were moments when I reached for my phone before remembering. Moments when I saw something beautiful and instinctively wanted to share it. Moments when I turned my head expecting someone who was no longer there. Tiny moments, ordinary moments. The kinds of moments that quietly hold a life together. And each one carried its own fresh disappointment. I don't think anyone prepares you for that part. People talk about heartbreak as though it was one event. One conversation, one goodbye, one terrible day. But for me, heartbreak was hundreds of losses. The future I had imagined, gone. The routines that once felt comforting, gone. The feeling of being understood, gone. The person I used to call whenever something happened, gone. The version of myself that existed inside that love, gone. And what remained was silence. An unbearable amount of silence. I remember sitting alone some evenings, staring at nothing in particular. Hours would pass. Hours. Sometimes I wasn't even thinking. I was just existing. Trying to survive another day without falling apart completely. The world around me continued moving. People went to work. Children laughed. Neighbors carried groceries home. The sun rose. The sun set. Everything continued exactly as it always had. And that almost hurt me. How could the world continue as though nothing had happened? How could people smile when it felt as though my entire life had collapsed? I carried that pain everywhere. Into supermarkets, into family gatherings, into ordinary conversations. I became skilled at pretending I was fine, skilled at answering questions, skilled at smiling when required. But inside, I felt pain, unjustified pain. Like someone had removed the center of my life and left everything else standing. The hardest part wasn't losing the person. The hardest part was losing the future. losing the certainty, losing the dream, losing the belief that tomorrow held something beautiful. Before the loss, I had moved through life with a quiet sense of anticipation. Afterward, I moved through life carrying dread. The days no longer felt like chapters leading somewhere. They felt like obstacles to endure. And perhaps the most frightening realization of all was this: I no longer recognized myself. The hopeful person I had been seemed gone. The warmth, the excitement, the lightness, the desires, the wishes, all of it seemed buried beneath grief. I remember wondering if this was permanent, if this broken, exhausted, disconnected version of me was all that remained. For a long time, I genuinely believed it was. For years, I believed it was. For years, I lived that way. Then, one day, something strange happened. Nothing changed, and yet something did change. I laughed at something and didn't immediately feel guilty for it. I spent an entire afternoon without thinking about the loss. I made a plan for the following weekend. A small plan, a very ordinary plan. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like I was looking ahead instead of looking back. The pain was still there, but it no longer occupied every corner of my mind. It was as if grief, after taking over the entire house, had slowly retreated into a single room. And that room was still part of me. It still is. But it was no longer all of me. Looking back now, I can see that I spent years believing love had created the best parts of who I was. My kindness, my hope, my ability to dream, my capacity to care deeply. When the relationship ended, I assumed those things had ended too. But I was wrong. Love hadn't created them. It had simply given them a space to go. The love I felt for another person had always come from me. The devotion came from me. The tenderness came from me. The willingness to open my heart despite the risks came from me. And if those things came from me once, then they could come from me again. Not in the same way, not for the same person, but they would never truly lost. What I lost was a chapter, a beautiful chapter, a painful chapter, a chapter I still revisit from time to time. But I didn't lose myself. I only lost sight of myself for a while. And sometimes I think that's what grief really is. Not the disappearance of love, but the temporary disappearance of the person who was carrying it. Until one day, slowly and unexpectedly, they find their way back home. I hope you do too. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next thought.